This is episode 708, and I'm Greg Swanson. Today we're going to be talking about harnessing emotional intelligence and actually to help you with peak performance. So let's get into it. So what if emotions could be your superpower, right? A lot of us succumb to them, and our emotions tend to bring us down and derail us and have words come out that we're not meant to say. And it's usually not a superpower, but a debilitating power. Have you ever felt like your emotions are running the show? Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, where the emotions are just taking over and we have no control over them. It's like you're stuck on an emotional roller coaster and you can't find the brake. 1 minute you're up, next minute you're down. 1 minute you're up, your next minute down. And you're just going along for the ride. And it used to be called an e-ticket ride in Disneyland in Southern California. But you feel like you're on this roller coaster and you have no control over it. But here's the deal. Emotions aren't the enemy, right? In fact, when you understand and manage them, they become your greatest strength. And this is part of mental strength, right? Is control, challenge, commitment, confidence. But what we want to do is be able to not control our emotions to the point of being Mr. Spock or a Klingon where we don't have any, but we want to be able to use that energy and manage that energy appropriately. So, emotional intelligence, this is where emotional intelligence comes in. And it's been quite the buzzword as opposed to IQ. We're talking about EQ right now. And so what is emotional intelligence and why does it matter? Well, depending on who you ask, there are very different but similar definitions. So for the sake of this podcast, we're going to call emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions while also tuning into the emotions of others. How many times have you just lost it, blown up, and the other person is doing something similar or not, or they're shrinking in their emotions, right? And you don't even notice it because all you're doing is you're so overwhelmed with your own emotion that you don't notice anything else. You got this peripheral vision that you don't know anything else. And so this is why emotional intelligence is important, right? Think of this as the ultimate life hack, right? It's like having a GPS that guides you through the emotional chaos of life and keeps you on track towards success, right? And that's what peak performance is about, is we purposely set a goal, a top of a mountain, a peak, and we put ourselves under, we push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, right? We challenge ourselves. Well, if we go so far outside of our comfort zone, our emotions are going to take over, or they may even take over before we start to take action. And then we'll back off, and then we'll go, I'll do better again tomorrow. And we get these emotions because we're letting the emotions run our life. But if we can harness this emotional intelligence, then we can use that to keep us on track and to achieve our peak performance. So there's three core pillars. There's actually four, but three core pillars of emotional intelligence, right? Self-awareness, know thyself, meaning at any specific time, you can identify the emotion you are experiencing and potentially why you're experiencing it. So the why, this is the tough part, because the why part comes in, like if you're talking to your boss and they make a comment and you get annoyed. And why did you get annoyed? Well, he can't talk to me like that. She can't talk to me like that. Well, okay, but why are you getting annoyed? Well, because then we look at, well, I feel disrespected, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when we know ourselves, we can then understand the feeling we're having and why, and then we can challenge the why. Like, is this true? Is this true all the time? Like Byron Katie's The Work. How do you feel when you have that emotion? How would you feel if you don't have that emotion? And who would you be without that emotion? That's where self-awareness comes in, but we have to be able to identify the emotion we are feeling and then being able to understand why and where it is coming from. The second is self-regulation. That's mastering the pause, right? My mom used to tell me that be quiet. What the difference between a reaction and a response is 10 seconds. So a reaction is immediate, a response is thoughtful. So that's mastering the pause, right? We get upset, we hear something, and we automatically just want to use our flamethrower and shoot the person back and burn them up. Well, if we take time to breathe, count to 10, then compose our emotions and then understand what is happening, we are then going to be able to respond, not react, in a better way. And again, this is all helping us to achieve this peak performance or a higher level of performance. Because if we're not self-aware, if we don't self-regulate, we're just going to blow ourselves up. So this mastering the pause is absolutely essential. And then there's empathy, right? It's walking in the other person's shoes. So if somebody comes to us and could be our boss, and they make a comment that is like, it's irritating. We don't know the type of day that they're having. Maybe they don't have the level of emotional intelligence that you do, and so they're taking it out on you and you're taking it personal, when in reality, we don't know the type of day they're having. So that's where know thyself and master the pause, and then perhaps understand where they are coming from, and that is having that empathy for them as well. When we can tie all those three together, then we're beginning to harness this emotional intelligence. So why emotional intelligence is the key, the key to peak performance, right? It gives us better decision making. If we want to reach a certain level of performance, whether that's sales, fitness, intimacy, whatever that might be, we have to make better decisions. And if we let our emotions run our decisions, we're going to make pretty lousy decisions. I don't think you can find a time where you were super angry and you made a good decision or said a good thing. So when we have this harness, it's like a wild stallion. When we have the harness and the reins on it, it calms down. We can then make better decisions. We can point that horse in a better direction. So when we start to harness this emotional intelligence, we can have much better decision making. So when we know better, we do better. And then enhanced resilience. So a lot of times, right, again, getting back to the boss, they say something, they wipe us out for the day, right? We are just distraught. We're in the corner, we're bitching to all of our coworkers, we're doing this, we're calling our significant other, but the resilience is like, hey, I'll bounce back from this. I'm going to keep going. I know my boss is a good person, or my friend is a good person. They're probably having a tough day, so I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm just going to keep moving on. Because, right, with resilience, we cannot reach peak, right? Again, peak is a single event. It's not high performance, but it's peak performance. And if we don't have the resilience to keep going when things get tough, I mean, think about a mountain, right? You get up there, you get 9,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 13,000 feet, and you start to stumble and fall and run out of breath and things start happening to you, but you have to have resilience to keep going. The same thing here in life is, if you want to reach a certain level of peak performance, you're going to need to have resilience and grit to keep going, and emotional intelligence will help you with that. You'll have stronger relationships, and nothing great accomplished was accomplished by yourself, right? So there's always a team around you. And when you have stronger relationships, those stronger relationships can help and support you to turn on that resilience, right? If individuals around you go, yeah, that sucks, your boss sucks, look for a job, that's not helping you build resilience. But if you have a strong group of relationships that say, hey, take a breath, think about it, what type of day are they having, how bad do you want this promotion, now let's get to it. So you can have stronger relationships, and this can be even intimate relationships or friend relationships or work relationships. But when you have emotional intelligence, people will want to be around you because you're calm and collective, and people want a cool head when they're losing theirs. So here's some practical strategies to harness emotional intelligence, right? Mindfulness. If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you know mindfulness is key in any part, in mental strength, in a warrior mindset, in emotional intelligence. But the thing with mindfulness, it takes no extra time. I know I've repeated this over and over and over again, but you can practice mindfulness while you are eating. So turn off TV, turn off the music, turn off everything if you're by yourself, and then enjoy your meal. What that means is you look at it, you see how pretty it looks on the dish, you smell the aromas, you take one bite and you chew it thoroughly, and you engulf your senses in the meal. It can also be the same with a conversation, active listening. You fully engulf. Mindfulness can be summed up in 3 words: be here now. And when you be here now, the emotions, you're able to harness your emotional intelligence. Then journal your emotions. Well, first, journaling is great anyway, right? Whether it's gratitude or planning our day. But when you have an emotional distress, it's great to journal when it's happening. But if you can't at work, you come home and you review. This is what I was feeling. This is what was going on. When you journal, you don't want to justify your emotions. You want to investigate where they came from. Because if you justify them, and people go, yeah, I felt it, right? I'm not saying that you didn't feel those emotions, but if you justify, well, my boss treated me this way, so I got pissed and I broke the glass, or my significant other did this, that's why I slammed the door. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody did this or something happened and I felt this way and I did this. Where did that come from? How is it I responded that way instead of another way? Because realistically, you have 1,001 ways to respond, or you have 1,001 ways to react. So we want to understand, did you react or did you respond? And that comes through in the journaling, right? And practice active listening. That's what I talked about in the mindfulness part a few seconds ago, is really listen. Most people listen to respond to the person, right? Okay, come on, get over what you're sharing so I can share my perspective on it. But when you're really, really listening, it's like you are that person. This is where empathy comes in. Active listening is being fully engaged in what the person is saying. Many times we have done that when a friend comes to us and they're really distraught, something horrible has happened. We will listen very actively, probably for the first 2 or 3 minutes, if that. And then we go, okay, come on, let's get it over with. Well, that's not helping them and that's not helping you be mindful. So we want to do practice active listening. And I would say that since mindfulness takes no extra time, practice active listening takes no extra time. It just takes the intention. And if you can't hold your attention because we have become so attention deficit, time it. Say you're going to have a meeting with somebody, you're going to talk, hold that active listening for 30 seconds. Then the next time do it for a minute, then a minute and a half. Slowly work up to it. It is difficult if we haven't practiced it, right? But all of these are practices, not perfects. And so then role playing through tough scenarios. And let's say you're going to have a tough conversation with a friend, significant other, or a boss. Instead of running through it in your mind, which you'll get all worked up with your emotions, have somebody sit with you and pretend that they are you and that you are the other person. Or vice versa, or better yet, do both. So role play like, okay, I want you to be my boss. I'm going to ask you for a raise. Here I go. And then I want you to be me, and I'm going to be my boss, and I want you to ask me for a raise. When you can play the role playing in both directions, that allows empathy, and it also allows you to respond instead of react. So here's some final thoughts, and take the first step today, right? Pick one of those things, mindfulness, active listening, one of those, and start today, right? But here's the truth. Harnessing emotional intelligence isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have for anyone serious about living a purposeful, resilient, and peak performance life. Right? We need this. This is part of the ingredient. If we look at it as a math equation, this is one of the primary fundamentals in that math equation. And the best part is, right, it's all within your reach. Everything we talked about, you don't need to do anything. You don't have to go out and buy an app for it. You don't have to go out and purchase anything. All of this you can be done right now. You have the tools within you. So think of emotional intelligence as a key that unlocks the door to your best self. Now, don't we really want to be our best self every day? I don't think any of us wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to be a shitty person today. I'm going to be a real jerk. I'm going to get as many people pissed off as me as possible. No, we wake up, we don't set an intention. So maybe we can set the intention of how can I be my best self today? Well, maybe that might be embracing this emotional intelligence. So it helps you take control of your emotions, connect deeply with others, and make decisions that align with your goal. That's all the power of harnessing emotional intelligence. If you want to see the show notes on this podcast, you can visit warriormindcoach.com. While you're over there, you can find more useful information in the form of other podcasts and blog posts, as well as requesting a breakthrough session. Since you'll be on the internet, please follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest under Warrior Mind Coach.